My name is Kit, and today I'm talking to Richie. Richie, how long have you been in business now?
Self-employed for 2 years.
Okay. Tell me what kind of jobs do you do? What kind of work do you do?
Mostly handyman, general building,
Right.
garden work, anything
Right.
that comes my way in.
Right.
Just revolve around the construction, really.
Okay. And would you see yourself as being like a kind of a builder? If you were to describe yourself, would you say your main line of work was construction work?
No, I wouldn't
No.
say I was a professional builder. No,
Okay.
I'd put
Right.
myself to a sort of labourer handyman.
Okay. So typically, what kind of jobs do you do then?
Summer work involves grass cutting, fence building,
Right.
garden walls, exterior painting, plastering. I'm doing work at the moment at a hotel where I'm renewing doors, architrave, painting, just general work.
Okay. And you were saying to me you've also done some outdoor work as well, is that right?
Yes, I've taken on jobs before on sites doing groundwork, which is trenches, pipe laying, gravel laying, tarmacking, again general labouring, building work.
Okay. Tell me, how did you get into that? Is this something you've always done, or is it some skills you picked up?
Well, my father was a builder. Most of my family were builders, so I picked up a few skills growing up with my father. But I've had an array of jobs, from working at Tesco's, being employed through temporary work. Then I found it would be easier through talking to another general builder how easy it would become to become self-employed, which I did, and yeah.
Okay. And tell me, you have got a prison background, is that right?
I do, yes.
Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes, back into 2000, I was involved with a bunch of older lads. I was quite young at the time, and I started taking drugs. Started having money to get drugs, so started off with general stealing, and I progressed into robbery. It was robbery on a post office. So that was a very dark time in my life. I realised very quickly, obviously once being sentenced, that this wasn't the life for me, and I had to change my ways. I come out of prison, started working. I worked at Glastonbury Festival, actually, again doing infrastructure work, power lines, toilets, plumbing, and I met my partner there, and we've been together now for 7 years.
When you came out of prison, did you have a clear view that you didn't want to go back in, or not?
Yeah, I had a clear view that this wasn't a path for me, and really thought of ways of staying in work and finding work. And staying from prison, and also from the people that I'd associated myself with.
Did you have a plan as to what you were going to do when you came out?
No, not as such. No, I knew that I had to get a job to support myself, and that's where it started, really.
How easy is it, do you think, for people coming out of prison to get a job as an employee?
I don't think it's very easy at all. Once you disclose that you've had a criminal record, there's not a lot of people out there willing to employ you, especially when you say it was actually classed as armed robbery. It's a big one.
Do you work mainly for householders, or do you work like as a subcontractor for construction companies, or what?
Mainly household, mainly private sector, yes.
Because if you work for a householder, you wouldn't have to disclose a conviction, and you just wouldn't bother, would you?
No, you wouldn't, no.
If you were to work for a contractor, would they ask information of you?
Possibly. There's times where I have filled out application forms that have asked the statutory, have you any criminal records? Of course I've had to disclose. Sometimes it's mostly down to if you can do the job. It's a lot of speech over the table with the interviewer. You know, if you can persuade them that you can do the job well and you're reliable. And most it comes down to, you know, human factor, really.
But have there been cases where you think the disclosure has stood against you in getting a job, stopped you from getting a job?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. More times than not, yeah.
Okay. So you would turn your hand to anything really then in the construction world?
But I've always been very practical.
Yeah.
So practical, hands-on work is me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are any of the jobs more profitable than others? Any types of work more profitable than others?
Yeah, the more skilled you are, the more profitable. Obviously, plastering is a good one. Small sections, plastering, building walls, putting in price work. Price work's better than cash in hand day work. Or,
And priced work is what?
Well, basically, you go to the job. Say somebody wants a garden wall built, so you take measurements on how big and how high the wall is, what type of material they're going to use, whether it's going to be stone, block, brick, rendered. And you take into account how much that's going to cost you at your suppliers, or you might want to phone around to get a couple of quotes on some materials, and you write them a quote for the job. You don't necessarily give them a quotation for the job there and then. You could say, if you're not comfortable with giving a quote, that I'll get back to you with a quote, as I have done myself in the past.
Richie, would you say there are advantages to being a self-employed builder?
Well, the advantages are that you work your own hours, you put in your own hours, you don't have to necessarily disclose that you are a criminal or ex-criminal, should I say. And the more interesting that you can do the work, and obviously you do your best, and you get a good name for yourself. And
you've got a young family. Does being self-employed help with having a young family?
Definitely, it means I can be at home. I pop in and out regularly to see my children. I pick them up from school. I take them to school in the morning before I attend to work. So it's very flexible being self-employed.
What about disadvantages?
It can be very demanding. There are a few jobs, something can go wrong, emergencies happen, you might need to spend longer on site to take care of that. Job that always sort of comes first in that sense.
Do you think, is it a jump for people to take responsibility for their own life as a self-employed person? You know, most employees expect someone else to make decisions for them, but is it hard to make that jump?
I thought it was, but it wasn't. No, it was a couple of forms to fill in, and on my way really with the self-employment. I had to learn how to do tax returns and to bookkeep, which really was pretty straightforward.
Okay. Let's say I wanted to become a self-employed builder. What would I do? What if I woke up on day one? What would I need to do to find work?
Well, there's cases where I've gone out, I've saved some money, I've got some leaflets printed quite cheaply nowadays, and I've asked my partner to help me, and we've gone out in areas that I know that need work, and I've actually posted leaflets into doors to gain work. So I've actually done the footwork myself to find work. I mean, you could put a small advertisement in the paper again, which is cheap today to do. And
okay, that's good. I want to talk about marketing in a moment. Let me ask about competitors. Are there many people competing for work against you?
Well, I suppose there are, but I don't really come across that. I mean, I'm not a big player in the field, so I don't really come across a lot. I put in a good price for work. That usually gets me the job. I was not asking too much. As maybe somebody in the building industry is a bit more professional would, because they've got a lot more overheads. But so.
You've been doing this for 2 years. 2 years?
Yeah, self-employed for 2 years.
Has it got easier, do you think, as time goes by, or is it still difficult, bearing in mind we're in this recession?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say finding work's got easier. I mean, sometimes you get customers that call you back for work, and like at the moment, this ongoing contract with a hotel that I've got. There'll be a lot more work in the summer, so for maintenance work. So one job sparks another job sometimes, but it's always a struggle to find work. Yeah, it's what you're willing to do to find work. Yeah.
Okay. What about acquiring skills, construction skills? Is this something people just have as they grow up with their parents, their dad being good at this?
I think you've got to be very practical minded. I mean, in things really, straightforward thinking, and put your hand to something, see what you're good at. I mean, I read quite a lot of these DIY books, self-help, Reader's Digest. Anywhere to gain a bit of knowledge from a job. If I didn't know, I would ring a builder and ask, ring a friend, about a job, specific job, this, that and the other. Family members that are in the building industry can help with that.
So you need to be quite flexible then, and quite adaptable perhaps?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
And prepared to learn?
Definitely prepared to learn, yeah, every step of the way, yeah.
Okay. Do clients ever ask you about your qualifications or your experience?
Sometimes qualifications can come in handy. Personally myself, I don't have qualifications.
But that hasn't stopped you from
No,
doing the work?
No, it hasn't stopped me, no. I mean, it's down to, like I say, what you say, how you present yourself to say, look, I can do this job, believe in yourself, they'll believe in you, really.
So would you say that most people don't ask the qualifications?
In the building industry, in the private sector, they don't. A lot of the times for industrial work, I've been asked for credentials, so to speak.
Oh, and do you operate as a one-man band?
Yes, I do.
And do you ever need a mate to do stuff?
Yeah, sometimes there are jobs that I put out with friends. I've asked for a labourer's wage to help me for the day. But I've not worked my way up really to needing a full-time labourer now.
But if someone was to do this, you would keep your eye out for some mates who would be able to come along and do some labouring for you?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, all right. On the domestic side then, what kind of customers would you say you get? Are they middle classes? Are they rich? Are they families? What? Are they all quite ordinary?
I would say middle class, yeah, working middle class. Maybe a lower end. Like I said, I've canvassed for work in lower end council estates before now. There's been a fair bit of work from that, yeah.
So even people who don't look particularly rich, maybe don't have the skills, don't have the time, want to get work done? Yeah, okay. On the commercial side of things, what kind of companies would need work doing then?
On the commercial side, would be on site.
Are we talking construction company? You talk about a hotel, for example. Is it like the end user, the end client who would hire you? Or would you get would you find work with a construction company?
In the private side?
In the private sector, yeah.
In the private sector, I'd just go straight to the owner of the hotel.
Okay. But would you ever get any work from, say, a builder? Or would you not look for that kind of work?
I haven't looked for that type of work, no.
Okay. So let's say you've put an advertisement out, potential customer rings. You take us through what happens then.
Well, again, if somebody rings and asks for a specific job, then I'll ask for their name and address, and I'll go and speak to them personally and address the situation when I come to it. Yeah.
Would you then go away and give them a quote? Would you give them a quote at the spot, or what?
If I feel confident that I can give a quotation on the job, if it's a job that I've done previously and I have the knowledge to give a quotation, then yes, because I've come across jobs before where I've overpriced or I've underpriced. So be confident in pricing the work.
So you need to know then how long it's going to take you to do a job, what materials you might need, and so on.
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's talk about that then. Would you buy materials in yourself, or would you get the client to buy them?
Again, it's 50-50, depending on how large the job is. If it's a small job, you can cover it yourself, then do so. Obviously, there's money in the business that you're trying to support. So you could buy the materials, yes. On some cases, large jobs, you can ask for a deposit, which is well within your right to ask for a deposit, and go from there, yeah.
Do you ever have difficulty getting paid? The client never gets around to writing you a cheque.
I have, but I've been quite good. Most of it's been cash, some of it's been cheques, but fingers crossed they've all gone through. Yeah, so.
When would you ask to get paid?
After the job.
After the job?
Yeah.
Do you ask immediately after the job, or send an invoice, or what?
I send an invoice, or mostly it's immediately after the job in cash. Yeah.
And are people reasonably good at paying up?
In my line of work, I think they are, yeah, because you're there. They realise that it's a quick turnaround job. It's not necessarily a professional's job, a tradesman's job. So yeah, I think they pay, yeah.
Okay. So doing the work then, do you need tools? Do you need particular equipment?
Yeah, you do need tools. I've collected tools. I've bought tools, second-hand tools. My boot sales are very good for picking up second-hand tools. Power tools are very cheap nowadays, come with guarantees. So if you are looking at the lower end market of tools, there are some good tools out there.
What about vehicle?
Well, I just use my family car.
Mhm.
I have a family car, a people carrier, so the seats can come out. I've got a bit of space. I have no advertising on the vehicle. I just work from.
Have you thought about that?
I have. It's all a matter of cost, really. Money, to put money aside to buy a vehicle that's suitable enough for my sort of trade, which would be a small van. But again, money at the moment, with being a family, it's very difficult to have 2 cars on the road at this time.
You can get panels that I think you pull off.
Magnetic signs. I've
ones.
been looking at magnetic signs,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Okay. What about risks or problems about when you're doing work? Do you ever get people complaining, for example, or a disagreement as to how the work should go?
Yeah, absolutely. I get customers that they like to change their mind when you're in the middle of a job. That comes up quite regularly. So you've got to look at the pros and the cons of the job. Is it going to work? Because sometimes a person can see in their mind how they want the job to go, especially bricklaying. There's a certain way, a certain path that you have to follow, and rules you have to stick with, building regulations. So.
Okay. So it would be a matter of negotiating with a client, saying it's going to cost you this much more, or I've got to do it my way, or...
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. You must make sure that they're aware that it's going to cost more,
Yeah.
or it could cost less, this, that and the other. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So, and what about seasonality? Do you get rained off at all?
Well, building industry is very much like that, especially if you're a brickie or an exterior painter. Obviously the weather comes in, you can't lay a brick in the rain, so to speak. So, yeah, weather's good, but seasonal. I mean, I'm a handyman, so it's in and out. I could be grass cutting in the summer. I could be building fences. Different stuff all through the year. Really, I look for all types of work. So, in that.
What does it cost to set up, do you think? What are the minimum costs to get into the self-employment?
Well, again, I was very fortunate. Really, it didn't cost me a lot to get into self-employed. I mean, I didn't pay to become self-employed. I mean, that was free. I had some tools, I had some knowledge, and I had a vehicle.
Yeah.
So I was lucky. There was no real cost involved.
So virtually zero, really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. When you're costing up a job, you would need to say, I suppose, do you say I would expect to earn this at this daily rate or whatever?
Well, I don't really work by a daily rate. I get price jobs, really. Okay. Yeah, it's not really a daily rate.
So tell us about how you would go about pricing a job then.
Again, working out how much materials I'd need, what my personal daily costs would be for a job. I'm working out from there, yeah.
So you would need to have a sum in your mind. You would need to know what your living expenses were.
Yes.
What it costs to keep you and your family together, to pay the rent or the mortgage, to keep your car on the road, to put food on the table, put a bit aside, pay some
you've
tax.
got to work out your weekly living expenses. Yeah, you've got to live within your means, and that comes in with a suitable wage. But again, it's difficult to jumble when you're doing price work, because some days I could only have a job that's a £10-20 job. Some other jobs it could be £200 to £300. So it's difficult when you are self-employed to maintain an accurate income.
Yeah. Okay. Are people price sensitive, do you think?
Price sensitive.
Customers.
Well, they like to know they're getting their money's worth. I think everybody's a bit like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So you've done some marketing, you put leaflets through people's doors,
I have done.
you're looking at maybe advertising in newspapers. What about referrals?
I think word of mouth goes a long way. Definitely so, yeah. I mean, through this hotel, it was a customer that I'd done some jobs for, a painting in an art gallery, and just a whitewash for an art gallery, and that stemmed from working at hotels. So.
Do you have cards? Do you give out cards at all to people?
No, I don't. No.
Okay. Is that a good idea, do you think?
I think it would be in the future. Yes, definitely.
Okay. Right. The lifestyle then, would you say it was easy or a hard life? We talked about you talked about not really knowing what your income's going to be. That's a difficult one, isn't it?
Yeah, there's been hard days in the winter, cold. Still out working, digging trenches in the cold. It's demanding. The lifestyle can be great when you've saved money and you're on holiday and you're enjoying yourself and you think, that was worth.
Okay. Would you want to go back to being an employee, or would you say actually it's really too hard because of my background?
Well, if you are employed, there's benefits to being employed. You get looked after a lot better. There's sick pay. I don't get paid sick pay. I don't get paid days that I'm off. I don't get holiday pay. But again, it's down to my criminal record that I can't seek full-time employment.
Okay. What do you think you'll be doing, Richie, in 5 years' time?
I hope to be a bit more successful in my business. Actually call myself a tradesperson, maybe. I've been looking at maybe becoming a full-time bricklayer, as that's where the money seems to be. So I hope to see myself as a good, successful, small general building business.
Okay. You get money in from customers. What about records? What kind of records would you keep?
Well, again, invoices. I downloaded an invoice via the internet, a standard copy of how an invoice may look to a customer. Again, if I paid cash, I put down how much I was paid, how long the job took me, not too much detail. Keep a record of that on a computer, or again, the old pen and paper. Pay it into my bank, and then I receive my self-employment self-assessment form, yes, that I fill out, yes.
Would you fill that out?
I needed help with it. There's lots of pages asking questions, numbers, this, that and the other, but it's quite self-explanatory nowadays. There's a lot of, you can do it online. There's a lot of help out there for people.
Who would you get help from initially?
Well, the Inland Revenue. Yeah.
Okay. What about the issue about paying tax, putting money aside for tax?
Yes, again, that has to be worked out. My partner helps me work out how much is owed for tax, but again, the self-assessment return forms that I do, it's all there.
Do you try and put money aside?
Money goes aside into a bank, yes, for the business.
Do you put money aside into a separate account, or just try and build up an amount of money in the bank account?
I just try and build in a bank account, yes.
Okay. You don't use a bookkeeper, you wouldn't bother to use an accountant, do it yourself, self-assessment?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
All right. And you'd operate as a sole trader, you wouldn't bother to become a limited company or any of that stuff?
Not at the moment, no.
Okay, all right. Richie, is there anything you wish you knew when you first started that you know now? Anything that you've learned?
Yeah, obviously I was down a dark path at one point in my life, and I'm glad I turned the corner, and work done that for me. Work is very important. Work gets you out and about, gets you to meet people, build structure to your life. Whereas when I was a criminal, my days were sporadic. Never had any routine. Structure in life definitely work gives me that.
And when you became self-employed, were there mistakes that you made? Would you just do things differently now?
There are mistakes I've made in the past, yeah, but you learn from your mistakes and you build on.
Anything that comes to mind, you think, well, I would do that differently now? Is that like pricing or quoting or anything like that?
I don't think I would have robbed a post office, to be honest. I think that would have been the first thing I would change.
All right.
And, yeah.
What advice might you give to someone who is thinking of setting up to be self-employed? What would you say to them?
Just be confident in what you do. Just know in yourself that you can do a job. Be straight and think, I can do this. Be confident in yourself, definitely, and that'll take you. But there are companies out there that are willing to help. Bodies that government bodies that can help us.
If you wanted to set up
to set up as self-employed.
Richie, thank you very much indeed.